Hey friends, welcome to part 4 of the crash course on audio production, the final video in this series. Hope this series has come to be very helpful to you in understanding all the different aspects of audio production. And the last thing we're going to be talking about today is the mastering process. Now, if you're like me, when I was first getting started in audio production, I was very confused on what the difference between mixing and mastering was. I would read articles, I would hear people talk about the differences, but it wasn't until I saw someone actually show me what mastering looks like that I finally understood it. Because there are definitely a lot of similarities between the two. And if you're a visual learner like me, this video will be very beneficial in helping you understand what the mastering process looks like versus the mixing process. So overall, the mixing process is more detail-oriented, whereas mastering is looking at the big picture. So if you remember in the last video, when I pulled up my mixing project, I had every single track that was on that recorded song. And the mixing process consists of balancing out each of those individual tracks and trying to find some sort of balance, some sort of harmony between all of them. Mastering, though, as I said before, is more big picture. So this green track here is a finalized version of my mix. So when I finished the mix, I exported it as a WAV file, and this is the one audio file representing my mix. Okay? And then as you notice, I have another track down here. What is this? Well, this is actually a completely different song. This isn't a song I made. In fact, this is a song from the rap artist known as Hopsin. And this is what would be considered my reference track into mastering. So basically when I'm ready to enter into the mastering phase, I want to try to think of a song that's very closely similar to the genre of my song. I'm going to drag them into the same project. So basically the idea of mastering is kind of adding like a final polish to your song as a whole. And so the concept here between having a reference track is this song has obviously already been released for quite a while now. And so it's obviously already been through the recording process, the mixing process, and the mastering process. So the idea is I am using this reference track to listen to how it was mastered. And I want to try to copy it. Maybe not exactly. I might want to add my own flair as well. But basically, we can kind of trust that this song, because it's been released already, we can trust that it has been through the process already, and that if it's closely similar to the genre that we put out in our song, we can trust that it's going to be a good template to take inspiration from. So literally what I'll do is, again, I might put on a loop so that I don't have to continuously keep pressing the play button, but yeah, I just have these side by side. I will play them, and then throughout the process, all I'm going to do is click back and forth between the solo buttons of each track. That way I'm hearing both songs, my original song, or if you're mixing for somebody else or mastering for somebody else, then their original song compared to your reference track. And you're going to try to spot the differences between your reference track and your track, and you're going to adjust accordingly, whatever your ears are telling you it needs more of. So how am I making these adjustments? Pretty much the same way I'm making adjustments in mixing. I'm not really touching the volume fader at all. I'm leaving that at 0. And by the way, ideally at the end of your mixing process, you want to leave a little bit of headroom below the 0 dB mark. I'd say you want it to peak around -3 dB, just to leave some headroom for when you are in the mastering process. With all that in mind, the first step I do in the mastering process is add a little bit of EQ if needed. So let me just open up this one that I have here. So when I was comparing it to this Hopsin track, I felt that both the low end and the high end were just a little bit off. So what I did here was I had 2 different frequencies in the bass range boosted. So essentially this bell right here is what I boosted for the kick to be more prominent, and right here is where I boosted for the bass to be more prominent. And then I added a shelf boost in the high frequency ranges to give that more crystal clear vocal sound. But when I did that, remember, mastering is affecting the whole track. Whenever you adjust something, it's adjusting everything in that mix. So as a result of the high shelf boost, I noticed that it made the hi-hats more prominent than I wanted it to be. So I also added a slight cut to this frequency, as you can see here, to attenuate that. And then from here, I added some slight compression to give it a little bit more kick, a little bit more bite. And again, I just want to reiterate the fact that when in the mastering process, you definitely want to be more conservative in your adjustments than when you are mixing it. And again, the reason being because when you adjust one thing in mastering, it's adjusting it for the whole mix. So you don't want things to sound too funky by adding really extreme EQ or really extreme compression. Keep it subtle. And then the very last thing I did was I added a limiter, which is pretty much extreme compression, and I did this to make the overall volume of the track louder. So I'll just pull this up here. This is a Waves plugin, and I'll just briefly explain this. So the outceiling fader here, that is where I don't want the volume of the track to go any higher. Technically, I could have left it at 0 because past 0 dB is where clipping occurs, but I just like to play it safe, so I just brought it a little bit under 0 dB just for that extra insurance to make sure my audio doesn't clip. And then I adjusted the threshold fader down a little bit, and really I just relied on my ears to tell me when to stop. And the threshold means that I don't want this limiter to do anything until it reaches this volume level. So minus 3.7 dB, it won't do anything until the audio reaches that level. So it's pretty subtle, but yet I felt like it gave it the extra kick and the extra energy that it needed. So just to reiterate, in mixing, I'm going to be adjusting multiple channels, multiple tracks of my song. I'm balancing everything out, and mastering is adjusting the finalized version of that mix. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to show you some comparisons of my song with the original mix, and then my song mastered by myself, and then another one that was mastered from an online service called LANDR. There's a few of these online services where you simply just upload your song when it's finished. When you've finished mixing it, you upload it, and it will use some crazy computer algorithm to master your song, and you can get a master that way instead of having to do it yourself. And I'll be honest with you, I don't consider myself to be a mastering professional by any means, so I'm definitely expecting for the LANDR master to sound better. But with that said, I'm gonna play the song, and I'll flip between the solo buttons. And just as a forewarning, so you don't get mad at me, I considered adjusting the volume faders on the mastered because in the mastering process, it does make the track louder. But I'm going to leave it alone because louder volumes is a result of mastering, so I want you to get that fair comparison. So just be warned that in between the different versions of the song, it might get louder. With that said, let's take a listen.
Trying to talk with you, but it seems like you're not listening. Where I'm to go. I've been walking through this desert, and the heat is so damn blistering. Where are you now? I've been trying to talk with you. Where I'm to go. I've been walking through this desert, and the heat is so damn blistering.
So there you have it. Obviously, mastering is a step that can really help to improve your mix. And typically how it works is you have a recording engineer, you have a mixing engineer, and you have a mastering engineer. 3 separate people working on this. However, I'm sure that most of you watching this may not have the resources to have a bunch of different guys, a team helping you put your music together. More than likely, I'm sure you're doing it by yourself. You're figuring out a way to record yourself, to mix yourself, do the whole 9 yards, and it can be overwhelming. I understand that. And this is why Prodigy Creations exists. I want to show you that it's not only possible to self-produce your own music where you have full creative control. I not only want to show you that, but I want to teach you that. I am going through the journey myself. I record all of my own original music, and I started as that guy, not knowing anything about audio production, not knowing anything about what a DAW is, what is mixing, what is mastering, what's the difference between them, how do I know how to structure a song. I've been through all of that. And this is a big reason of why I not only made this video series, but why I started Prodigy Creations. I want to show you how it's possible to achieve your goals by yourself and to actually help you achieve those goals. And one way that I've aspired to do that is by writing an ebook called The Simple Guide to Recording Music Now in 5 Steps or Less and providing it for absolutely free on my website, prodigycreationsnow.com. So if you are interested in getting started in your music production as soon as possible, or even if you're looking for audio gear recommendation and you have a budget that you want to stick to, I want you to get this free gift. And if you've watched the series all the way through, I know you've already heard about it, but if you haven't already taken action, I really, really encourage you to do so. This ebook complements the series really well because in these videos, I've given you the fundamental audio concepts that you need to understand when getting started. And this free ebook is going to give you a list of the essential tools you will need in order to make your recordings happen. And as I mentioned before, as an added bonus, I have audio gear recommendations based on your budget, anywhere from $50 to $1,500. So please, friends, if you haven't already, I urge you to visit prodigycreationsnow.com to claim your free ebook. There will be a button that says Get the Free Guide. And all you're going to have to do, friends, is enter in your email address. And within minutes, you're going to be sent a free copy of The Simple Guide to Recording Music Now in 5 Steps or Less. My free gift to you. That wraps it up for the series. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to watch all of or even part of this series. It was a lot of work to put it together, but I'm more than happy to do it. Excited to see the response it gets. If there's any other questions I can answer for you, feel free to leave them down in the comment section, and I will try to respond back to you as soon as possible. But with that, everybody, this is CJ with Prodigy Creations. Thanking you again for watching this series, wishing you the best of luck, and happy creating.